Mississippi restrictions on medical marijuana advertising are upheld by a federal judge. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by the owner of a medical marijuana dispensary who sued Mississippi over state regulations that he says censor business owners by preventing them from advertising in most media. In a Monday ruling, U.S. District Judge Michael P. Mills said he agreed with Mississippi's argument that since the possession of marijuana remains illegal under federal law, it is not a lawful activity and therefore does not enjoy the constitutional protections granted to some forms of commercial free speech. After Mississippi legalized medical cannabis for people with debilitating conditions in 2022, Clarence Crofit II opened True Source Medical Cannabis in Olive Branch, Mississippi. But he says he has struggled to reach customers because the state has banned medical marijuana businesses from advertising in any media. Mills said unraveling Mississippi's restrictions on marijuana advertising would be a drastic intrusion upon state sovereignty. And in quotes, this is particularly true considering the fact that by legalizing marijuana to any degree, the Mississippi legislature has gone further than Congress itself has been willing to go, Mills wrote. In light of this fact, on what basis would a federal court tell the Mississippi legislature that it is not entitled to dip its toe into the legalization of marijuana, but instead had to dive in headfirst into it? In a statement on Tuesday, Crofit maintained that Mississippi's regulations violate the First Amendment rights of businesses. He plans to appeal the decision to the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. And in quotes, he says, "I'm prepared to fight this fight for as long as it takes," Crofit said, "and the case is bigger than me and my dispensary. It's about defending the right of everyone to truthfully advertise their legal business in the cannabis industry." Crofit, who is represented by the Institute for Justice, a nonprofit libertarian law firm, sued the state's Department of Health Department and Revenue and Alcohol Beverage Control Bureau, and Crofit has said he cannot place ads in newspapers or magazines or television or radio or even on billboards that he already owns. The state cannot prevent dispensaries from placing appropriate signs on their properties or displaying products they sell on their websites. All other advertising restrictions are up to the state health department, which prohibits dispensaries from advertising or marketing in any media. Those regulations are unconstitutional, Crofit's attorneys argue, and in quotes they say, "When Mississippi legalized medical marijuana, it relinquished its power to censor speech by medical marijuana businesses," said Ari Bargal, an Institute for Justice attorney. "If a product is legal to sell, then it is legal to talk about selling it." While President Joe Biden pardoned thousands of people who were convicted of use of simple possession of marijuana on federal lands, marijuana remains a controlled substance under federal law, and as long as marijuana remains illegal under federal law, states have leeway to regulate how the substance is advertised, Mills ruled. Plaintiffs thus argue that Congress and President Biden have all but made the possession of marijuana lawful, which strikes this court as a tacit admission that it still remains illegal under federal law, Mills wrote. Well, I really support this guy. I hope he's victorious in his appeal, and I do agree with him that the state doesn't have the right to violate his free speech in regards to advertising for this. But I want to see what you guys have to say, and thank goodness we have a lawyer on the stage today. That's right, it is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think about this?
Commercial speech. We put way too much on Dale. Sorry, Dale.
It's commercial speech.
Right.
And the person here is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And the First Amendment is not pure when it comes to businesses and commercial speech.
But hold on, Dale. Mitt Romney said corporations are people too.
Well, of course they are. And you go back to the I think it was the 1880s, the first time the Supreme Court adopted the proposition that a corporation is a person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real tangible person. And we've been struggling ever since. And what right does a corporation or a business entity have as a person? Okay, as opposed to a person, someone that's, flesh and blood.
Mm-hmm.
And here in California, what we did to obviate this problem is we passed laws that allowed advertising, but you couldn't put up a sign on an interstate highway because that crosses state lines and it creates federal issues and problems here. Because this remains a federally illegal substance, the states can duck and hide behind that. And so I'm not particularly hopeful they're going to win this on appeal.
So you think that that the state was how the laws are written are fairly correct in their stance, and basically he doesn't really have a leg to stand on his appeal, is what you're telling me.
Well, from a legal standpoint, yeah. I mean, I disagree with it because I watch commercials every day for all kinds of goddamn drugs that make you shit and puke, and be careful, it'll have you have a psychotic episode, and oh, by the way, it makes you feel better. We watch that all day long. No one seems to care about those, but this one is going to bring up the ire of those who hate weed, and there's legal cover here. So, I mean, I'm not real hopeful, honestly.
Do you have some on this, Mandy? Mandy, you with us? Did you have some on this, Mandy? She on mute.
She does, but let me jump in real quick.
Go for it, here. Luke, please.
This whole situation, when we have like these restrictions on cannabis businesses, it's like it's suffocating, right? It makes it to where you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to be this many feet from this, you got to be this many feet from that, your hours of operation have to be this, you have to pay this many taxes. And then they say, oh, look, Kevin Sabat goes, oh, look, it's a failed marijuana program. You know what I'm saying? So we have to get away from this idea that like cannabis advertisements have to be any different, medical cannabis advertisements have to be any different than any other pharmaceutical advertisement. Well, why is that like such a crazy thought? You know what I'm saying? Like
about alcohol.
Yeah, I mean,
we advertise alcohol all the time. No one cares about kids watching an alcohol commercial. Here, Dad, here's your beer, Dad. You little fucking kid hands Dad a drink or a beer or a glass of wine, and no one cares. But they lose their mind over this shit. It's just unbelievable.
I agree with you. Major hypocrisy right there. Major
Granted, like this is the situation that always happens, right? It's always. They always want to play both sides of the fence. When it's convenient, they say, oh, a federal law prevents us from doing that. And then when it's not convenient, they say, oh, well, we are sovereign and we get to make our own laws. So it's like you can't have both. It's either we are a sovereign state and we get to make our own laws that aren't made by the federal government, or the federal government takes over everything. Which one do you want? Pick it.
I agree.
Right. Yeah, I can't agree with you more, Luke. They say treat it like medicine, and you can't advertise like medicine can advertise. They say treat it like alcohol, tobacco, you can't advertise like alcohol and tobacco. So just make it illegal and just let the trap win. The trap hasn't advertised.
That's right.
They always win.
That's right.
100+ years.
Maybe you should start.
And, they're gonna win regardless. It ain't like it's not gonna sell. You know what I'm saying? But you're just taking people's abilities to run their business competently away from them. That's what you're doing.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
And we are gonna roll right on into Mr.